193. Basic Laws of Torrent. Written down by the will of Kansabigi Urus Ugarida Teba Shamsi in the city of Basht, according to Kulgali and Ghazi Baba. 2. Those men and women who have been found guilty of abusing the Torah, adultery, stealing state and public property, war and stumbling horses, violence and robbery, plundering, let them be tied to a salmon wheel, and torn to pieces, and let the pieces be hung on a tarp. 3. Let a foreigner blaspheming Tangra be tied to a horse and chased until the blasphemer breathes his last, and let a foreigner who has converted a Bulgarian to the worship of foreign spirits be stripped of his nose and ears and be beaten and expelled from the country. 4. If any potentate or boy aunt secretly embraces another faith, they shall be executed. If an ordinary Bulgarian accepts another faith and conceals it, he shall be deprived of property, nose, ears, subjected to flogging and expelled from the clan. If any Bulgarian openly embraces another faith, he is deprived of all his ranks, all his property, and ceases to be a member of the clan, but he is not expelled or punished as a dishonorable person. 6. The quilt makers, the Burganis or Kampawns who have lost their power and are found guilty of cheating the people, let them be hanged on trees. 8. For treason against the state, let not only the guilty be executed, but also his nearest relatives. 10. Kagan Kansabigi, Emperor, Kapagan, Head of Government, Bagaltarkan, Oranage Dash. Leader of the nobles, and the Zatrabagila, performing the duties of the Ujik, or Edict Dash. Chief Judge, are elected at the Great Ganeshi. Before the Great Ganeshis, let each clan join at will the four great clans, Baranjar, Bahrain, Shirak, Shirin, Kunglayagian, the Konon Serbian clans, and Majara Sagal, headed by their chosen Turung, or Tujung, Abatn, or Abjiz. 11. The number of the Bulgars and the Baganim participating in the Great Ganeshi shall not exceed 500. And let all of them be given the title of Bulya. Let the number of palace bullars be limited to 30, and the number of internal or palace bullars to 12, and let them bear the title of Mibagi, Grand Bagi. 13. The sons of the Kogans or Khansabijis by concubines do not belong to the royal family, but belong to the family of their mother. 15. Taxpayers pay into the treasury a levy of 1/20 of their property. 16. The Khan has the right to take 1/10 of the merchants, 1/10 of the feast. Gifts, Obar, 1/10 for his judgeship, a levy of 1/20 of the whole property of the people in his Yurtluk, district, country. 19. The Kulbis, or Alagabi, the deputies of the Khana, supervise only the collection of the king's tribute, Ak Donga, white money, from the Kornkiai. The Alushtans, those authorized by the Kagan, supervise only the collection of the king's tribute, Kara Donga, black money, from the Bilimkiai, whereby they travel along certain roads and collect the prepared Donga, taxes, of the Chunkasi. If the Donga is not prepared within a specified time, then they have the right to turn off the road and take away the said tax by force in the presence of the Turungi. 21. Outside the limits of the Ongila, judicial appeals shall be heard by the Ijik. 25. In all cases a ransom should be paid for the bride, even if she is taken by force. If, in an attempt to kidnap a bride, the kidnapper or any of his companions is killed, no one is responsible for it. 30. It is obligatory to perform a prayer to Tangra, Bagun Karabag and Kibar before a battle for their bestowal of victory, around the royal buns and regimental billets, and with the sacrifice of men, horses, rams. All are sworn to fight bravely for victory, and to perish by the sword in case of flight from the field of battle. Then the Bunchuka, Bailiga and all the warriors are sprinkled with water from the Kelbira so that Tangra and his spirits grant the army victory. After a victorious battle, thanksgiving prayers and sacrifices are to be performed. 32. A warrior who treats his weapon with disrespect is deprived of it. 33. Warriors who come to a muster in incomplete armament, disobey orders, or flee from the battlefield are executed by the commander. 35. For the loot, a house is considered a prey to the warrior who first thrusts his weapon, spear or otherwise, into its wall. 36. The bodies of great warriors who have fallen should not be buried in the ground, for their souls will remain on our land and take revenge. Their bodies should either be burned, then they will never be reborn, or they should be hanged on trees, and their skulls should be made into cups and drunk, then Tangra will already reborn them on earth and infuse strength and courage into their arms as well as into the souls of the drinkers. 37. Captives are not to be killed. But if the enemies have committed crimes, the prisoners of war may be punished for it, and if a commoner is found among the prisoners of war, such should be separated from the rest of the prisoners and impaled or boiled in cauldrons. In the same way should the leaders of the robbers and the robbing warriors of the enemy be dealt with. 38. The killer is handed over to the relatives of the slain man, and they themselves decide whether to kill him or to allow him to ransom his life. If the relatives of the slain man forgive him and allow him to ransom his life, then the male slayer ransoms his life either for 1,000 sheep, or for 100 camels, or for 300 horses, and the female slayer for twice that number of animals. It is the same with self-slaughter. The member redeemer forfeits the same body part, or redeems it with the consent of the victim. 39. If anyone die by poison or by poisoning, let him with the poisoner or with him who let the carrion. Deal as with murderers. If the poisoning or poisoning has not resulted in death, the guilty tribute, ransom, fine, to the victim according to his situation. If the dowry is not paid, it shall be demanded from the relatives of the guilty and the means of poisoning or poisoning. If they were produced from wine, the vineyard is destroyed, and if it is caused by meat, then the animal shall be destroyed. 41. Murderers of their parents, of their nearest relatives, of potentates or boyars, not forgiven by the relatives of the slain, are tied to the doorjamb and shot with arrows, and then placed in chests and lowered to the bottom of pools of water, so that the sin of similar murders may be washed away by the sacred water. 42. The bodies of the quilters, of the foreigners, of the childless slaves, of the suicides, and of those whom Kubar has ordered by the will of Tangra, should be buried in cemeteries. The bodies of the accidentally perished quilters should be slung on trees, and birds' wings should be hung on the branches, by means of which their souls may fly to heaven. For the dead quilters and for those to whom the trident of Kubar has pointed, wooden ejikep, dais, pyramids, should be made outside the cemetery, and on these ejikep the coffin with the body and spare food and drink should be placed. If there is no wooden dais, then the coffin is placed on stiff stakes. At the same time, wings and images of birds should be draped on nearby trees and poles. 44. The thief shall recompense what he has stolen in tenfold. If he is unable to recompense in such an amount, the recompense shall be taken from his nearest relatives. 45. If a thief is caught with what he has stolen for the first time and swears not to steal again, then the established recompense shall be taken from him. If a thief is caught a second time, then the established recompense shall be taken from him, and in addition he shall be stripped of his nose and ears and shall be subjected to flogging, as a dishonorable man. If the thief is caught a third time, then established recompense shall be taken from him and both his legs shall be cut off. 46. If damage is done to merchants or to people of the government, and the guilty have absconded, then the responsibility for the crime shall be borne by the Bulgars and the people of the locality where the crime was committed. 48. If anyone is found guilty of slander against another, then let him be punished for the same crime of which he tried to accuse the innocent. 50. If a proprietor dies who has no grown-up children, then his minor children and his property shall pass to his father until they grow up. If his father is not among the living, then they shall pass to the dead man's brother, and the dead man's wives shall become his brother's wives. 51. A pregnant woman is delivered from punishment. A woman who has children receives not only her portion but also the portion of the children in a division of property. The fathers of the children may be different, but the mother is one. Let the children not forget this and worship her before saluting their father. 52. If any foreign ruler fails to surrender to the state of Bulgaria its subjects, animals and property, the Khan shall have the right to take them by force in attack as soon as he receives a refusal to surrender. 53. If any person escapes from the state into another country, the guards of that section of the frontier through which the criminals have escaped shall be executed for it. 54. If anyone shall attempt to conceal a criminal and a crime, then let him be subjected to his punishments, flogging, spitting, hanging by his ribs, dipping his hands and feet in boiling water, and then exacting from him the recompense laid for the crime. 55. If anyone shall attempt to escape the punishment inflicted upon him, he shall be executed. 56. Concerning oaths, it is to be known that an oath accompanied by the pouring out of all the water of any vessel signifies an oath for life, that the bind 3 skins and the gathering together in a bunch of stalks, twigs, signifies an oath for life of the whole family and of the children, that the spraying of anything means an oath on the sprayed property, which, in case of breaking the oath, will be destroyed by the will of Tangra, by Bagun and Kibar, that taking a handful of earth in one's hand means an oath on the well-being of one's land, that killing a dog means an oath on the life of one's whole family, which, in case of breaking the oath, will be destroyed by the evil spirits. It should be known that pissing, in some cases, depicting other people and creatures in a bad way, leads to a bad omen. A dog killed and buried on the site of a future settlement will guard that settlement. 57. If a treaty, made by oath before witnesses, is not performed by one of the contracting parties, the other has a right to apply to a court of law, and, by the decision of the court, to take possession of what he has sworn to the intruders, peaceably or by force. 58. For the rules of conduct at public assemblies. All are bound to worship Tangra, the spirits and the stars, for which reason 7 obligatory public assemblies are ordained. During the time of supplication women are always apart from men. At the great supplications, Camboyaners are not allowed. At Chamar, in the north, and at Nardugan, in the south, let the Ons, warriors, unite 40 men each in Jurashes, military detachments, and go out of the villages and towns into the forested Ordandulo, the steppe Tatarini and the mountain Bertas, places of temporary residence of the Jurashes, where they swear an oath to Bagun to avenge the death of the Alpanardugan and live in the autumn at the warrior gatherings, in November until Kazoms, and in the winter until Suran, in March, but not less than 40 days. Let tribute be paid to them in their tuba, and if it is not paid they have the right to take it by force. Let this be considered as a tribute fr. the adheart to Bagun for not protecting the man. Let the Jurasi, Hunturkis, wear masks and clothes of Kha, godless, for they protect the Tai Uba from evil spirits who may take revenge if they see the true face. Let the old warriors be likened to wolves and dress in wolf, bard, tiger, and bear skins and burets, wolf hats, and the young in sheep, goat, and bull skins, and let the old teach the young and the young learn from the old until they receive burets from the young, the clothes and rites of the old. During the autumn, Chamar, and winter, Nardugan, feasts and libations, Ashnayak, on which Bagun Orden and Saban Jamesh or Orden are specially honored. Women are forbidden to violate the privacy of men, and men the privacy of women. However, a few men, with the consent and by the choice of the women, may guard the women's secluded group, but they are required in doing so to present themselves as sisters and to bear women's names, or to portray any animals. During this period, fighting and the secret stealing of animals from the pastures with small forces, but without unnecessary bloodshed, is permitted, but no one is responsible for death in a fight. But all this does not apply to traders, whose lives and cargoes are always inviolable. If the Ashnayak takes place in the autumn, in the winter, during the Nardugan, only a one-day tax collection is held for the Jurashis. Pay no attention to the fact that in one place Bagun is called by Terak, in the Durga Karaba, in the 3rd Jam, in the 4th Kish Tarkan, in the 5th Kermes, in the 6th Orden, in the 7th Map, in the 8th Riishtau, Rustam, in the 9th, and to the fact that in different places also the other Alps are called by different names. But all, during the time of the assemblies, are obliged to pray alike. The city Karamats, Kastajis, shrines, should be identical and have walls with 7 passages, 3 doors, east, north, south, in the corresponding passages, and the Mazata at the south door should have a joining of the passages. Around the Uba, shrine, a high tower should be erected, Istanbulgan, or Iskul, Tower of the Holy Royal City. On the walls of the Karat the signs of the first Alp Bagun K. Alpa Saban, Sabosh, Mardukan, Nardugan, X. Alpa Kubar, Sich. 7-pointed star, Tamtu of Idel. 1 to 10. Bulgarian holidays. National holidays are one of the most important features of the culture of any people, including the Bulgarian. And culture is an important support of national feelings. A deep knowledge of the name, history and culture of one's nation give rise to and sustain the national consciousness and patriotism of the people. National consciousness is the main ethnic reference point for the people of the world. If a person is deprived of the knowledge of the name, history and culture of his people, national feelings and patriotism will fall away from him, and left without a national orientation, blind to himself, he will be quickly assimilated by other peoples. The Stalinist authorities banned all Bulgarian holidays as early as the 1920s in the course of a so-called anti-religious campaign, even though Bulgarian national holidays and celebrations were not Islamic in origin and preserved customs that originated thousands of years before the emergence of Islam among the Indo-Aryan, Hunnic and Turkic ancestors of the Bulgarians. Historical research, which is key to explaining and embracing national self-determination, was also placed under a Bolshevik ban. Bulgarian national holidays preserved customs that originated thousands of years ago among the Indo-Aryan, Hunnic and Turkic ancestors of the Bulgarians. Foreign records of Bulgarian customs, festivals and celebrations are fragmentary, while native Bulgarian records describe Bulgarian traditions in detail and can serve as a basis for writing the history of Bulgarian festivals of all the descriptions in the scroll of the Bulgarian Chronicles. The B festivals are described in the most detail in the Konkitabi, Book of the Huns by the Bulgarian poet Kulgali, which builds the basis for the sketch of Bulgarian national festivals. They are rooted in the deepest antiquity, tens of thousands of years ago, when our ancestors believed in God, whose personification was heaven. At the same time, they were possessed by superstitions that the whole world around them was inhabited by spirits. The concept of spirit in the ancient Bulgarian language is conveyed by several words, as alp, alup, diu, div, ear, etc., personifying the natural forces of storm, flood, drought, plants, life, etc. The good spirits Alpi, the evil Yorigi and Jinni, male and female, are distinguished, the word Bika being added to the female spirits. The spirits did not die of old age, and could only perish at the hands of other Alps or by the weapons of the Hersa. The most famous Bulgarian names of god and mythical spirits were 1. Abi, the Alp Bika of aquatic animals, fish, seals, whales, etc., daughter of Bori and Suanasa, foremother of the Bulgarian race. She assumed the form of a beautiful fish. Another Bulgarian name of this Alp Bika is Boigal, Bagel, Gulium Araba. 2-1. Idea, the genie of lust and debauchery. It took the form of a unicorn bull made of copper. 3. Albatius, the genie of the underworld, vizier of the jinn, symbol of evil. His other Bulgarian name is Tarmatan, Lord of Hell. 4. Auden, Alp of chivalry, heroism and crafts, son of Sama and Ashin. He is depicted in the form of a splendid horseman, rich man, a mighty oak. Other English names for this Alp are Renke, bull, Boyan, Magimishamesh, oak, Guragali, son of the grave, Uzi, beautiful, Turgesh Turkut Targiz, like Turk. 5. Ashna, Ashnan, Alp Bika of plants, wife of Sama. She assumed the form of the plants. Other English names of this Alp Bika are Guljahan, flower garland, Anna Korsak, protectress of mothers. 6. Boiterak, Alp of forests and good. He took the form of a huge green poplar tree. 7. Bori, Alp of the moon, hunting, military success, victory, glory, patron of the Bulgarian people. Assumed the image of the wolf and the badger, sometimes with one eye. Other Bulgarian names of this Alp are Chin, Pin, Hun, Sindai, Zyangbi, Baris, Barin, warrior and king glory, Mag, Mak, Mek, Mamal, Mamali, Achin, Afshin, Kur, Tur, Abori, Bulk, Bulk, Black, Salichi, Leia, etc. 2. 8. Jill, Alp of the wind. 9. Chkagan, the Alp of songs. Another Bulgarian name of this Alp is Sandugak, nightingale. 10. Idchik, Adzak, Azak, Jam, bull, maker, Idchik, the first Bulgarian, ancestor of the Bulgarian royal dynasty Dulo, son of Auden and Boigal. Another name of Idchik is Hishtk, changing his abode, traveling, drawing. 11. Kibar, Alp of lightning, storms and rain. Son of Map and Turan. Other English names of this Alp are Bobby, Bianche, Yandii. 12. Kuyan, Alp of trade. He took the form of a rabbit. In Bulgarian art it appeared as a symbol of mortality and sinfulness of earthly life, vainly escaping from death. Other names of this Alp are Kujan, heavenly hair, Tashbash, stonehead. 13. Map, Na, Alp of the sun, vizier of good spirits. He took the form of a white horse, a rooster. Other English names for this Alp are Art, Uten, Mai, Etek, rooster. 14. Mardu Khan, Nadu Khan, Alp of Light, son of Map and Turan. He took the form of a dragon, a raven, a crow. Other English names of this Alp are Karga, from it, raven, crow, Simba, Semba, Kungoi, a triak, dragon with the head of a horse and the body of a dragon, Lugan, serpentine dragon. 15. Mish, the djinn-bee of female independence in Bulgarian art, became a symbol of female arbitrariness and frivolity. 16. Sama, Chiomar, Alp of herbivores, fertility, harvest and abundance, son of Map and Turan, took the image of a dragon, a deer, elk, a oar, a ram, a goat. Often depicted as a horseman, rich man, or a splendid youth with hair. Hair signified deers, a symbol of strength and abundance, and with flowers, a symbol of abundance, in his hands. In Bulgarian art it appears as a symbol of submission to the will of Tangra. Other Bulgarian names for this Alp are Baraj, dragon as a winged dragon, Elbagan, many-headed dragon with an eagle's head and a dragon-like tail, Turk, great bull, Alabuga, spotted bull, Olka, spotted bull, Saban/Suban, shepherd, Bolan Kuja, lord of the deer, Guljamesh, flowering, fruit-bearing, Jimchakak, flowering, fruit-bearing, Sabosh, etc. 17. Suanasa, Alp beaker of rivers, plains, lakes and waterfowl, wife of Bori. She assumed the form of a duck, goose, swan, crane. Her other names are Uranus, Balaton, prophetic, little dark 4. 18. Tigers, Alp of winter, cold, mountain heights, guarding the sacred mountain of the spirits and preserving their wisdom. Assumed the form of a one-humped camel. He imparted to Idshik the wisdom of the Alps, which Tangra communicated to them, enabling Idshik to create a powerful state with perfect laws. Another Bulgarian name for this Alp is Kushtan, Lord of Winter. 19. Tangra, the Bulgarian name of God and heaven. Other Bulgarian names of God are as Ursu, Igbi, Hodai, Tor, etc. 20. Turan, the Alp beaker of love, divination, maidens, underground and underwater riches, mining, islands, mountain lakes. Patroness of wild animals, wife of Map, very often assumed the form of a serpent. She attempted to create in Idel-Ural a single perfect kingdom for all men, Turan, and she herself presided over it. The capital of Turan was called Urgi, in honor of the city's patroness Chakshak, which is why the city's coat of arms featured a two-headed bird. But then the spirits blocked access to the son of Turan and a heavy frost set in. The majority of the people fled Turan and this kingdom ceased to exist. Other Bulgarian nomen of the Alpic Turan are Ural, Aral, Abiarmai, Ramai, Ban, Bagiai, Lubov. 21. Kursa, Alp of blacksmith weaponry and of God's message, of impending death or change, son of Map and Turan. At the will of Tangra, he carried the souls of the dead from earth to heaven. He took the form of a griffin, an eagle, a berkut, a falcon and other birds of prey. In Bulgarian art, it appears as a symbol of the inevitability of God's judgment and the punishment of sin. Exactly Kursa handed over to Idshik the Bunchuka, Bayrayak, Horog, Selba, a bundle of horsehair from a sacrificial horse, tied to the top of a wooden pole, a stick, a spear, a symbol of royal power. Other Bulgarian names for Kursa are Sane, Doba, Happy, Aspar, Sarov. 22. Chakshak, Alpa beaker of the morning, family welfare and home hearth, wife of Alpa Karga. Sometimes she took the image of a two-headed cat, griffin, eagle, etc. Other Bulgarian names of this Alp beaker are Taves, Urgi, Alot, Iliad, happy hearth, giving happiness to the home, the country. 23. Shural, Jinn of the desert, drought and death. Took the form of a fox, a giant withered tree with honey leaves and a maw in the bark with terrible copper teeth. Another Bulgarian name for this genie is Kuvesh, Ku, Gully, Koroba. The superstitions connected with the spirits explain the strong dependence of primitive man on the surrounding nature, in consequence of his weakness and undevelopment. Ancient people believed that faith in Tangra and spirits would save them from misfortunes and troubles. The content of primitive superstitions gave rise to myths and legends. The myths were the first examples of folklore in which the power of the spirits and the weakness and dependence on them of man were extolled. The content of the myths was conveyed through ritual and theatrical actions and mimicry, the use of song, dance, carnival processions and dress, contests, and instrumental musical performances. Theatrical performances based on a myth are called rituals. The Bulgarians spread their mythology widely throughout the world. The ancestry of the Bulgarians appears to be Idel-Ural, Volga-Ural, which in the deep antiquity was called Ura or Turan, and later Old Turan. During the Ice Age, the ancestors of the Bulgarians took refuge from the cold in the Ural caves, and because of this their reverence for the mountains and caves arose. God and the spirits, the Proto-Bulgarians thought, appeared on the tops of the mountains and in the caves, and Ogam are also the names as and Alp, meaning high one. That is why the primitive temples and tombs of the chiefs and kings of the Bulgars were built in the form of pyramids, as symbols of the sacred mountains and cave prayer houses. The ancient Bulgarian temples in the form of earthen pyramids were called kurgans, or Balkans, in the form of smooth-walled pyramids, e.g. Kep, in the form of stepped pyramids, tombs, bulema, bulema, or myuli, hence the word mausoleum, architectural complexes of successively built pyramids and tombs of kings and heroes, as Kelu, higher prayer shrine, etc. In the beginning the Bulgarians called themselves Idel, i.e. 7/Ide/clan/L/, since the basis of our people consisted of 7 Indo-Aryan and Turkic clans. The Turkic ancestors of the Bulgarians came to the Volga-Urals from Altai. Around 15,000 years ago the Idels established a state in the Volga-Ural and gave it the name Idel. In the ancestral memory of the Bulgarians, which is preserved in the minds of the high priests, shamans, burkams, kamofs, and is passed from generation to generation, the date of the founding of the most ancient Bulgarian state, the first Bulgarian king, leader, Khatjam-Kavsiaji Targis announced the establishment of his state on June 22, 14,953 BC. He ordered that the Feast of Targis should begin with a procession in Alabuga on June 15 and end in Veliki Bulgar on June 22 each year. On the morning o. June 15, 1184, the king, accompanied by 30,000 Galim, priests and scholars, emirs, Bekar, Behadias and Savarks, the presidents of the merchant craftsmen societies, crossed from the left Tamte bank of the Agidal, Kama, to the Alabuts, right bank of the Kama, where 30,000 of the best citizens of the Alabuzilas, headed by the commandant Nabi, were welcomed and seated on the beautiful Langa meadow, which was laid out with dishes on dastrkhani, linen tablecloths. The very name of the meadow, Snake Place and former name of Alabuga, gave hope of inspiring patronage from heaven. Other forms of the name Idel are Atil, Itil, Tel, after which the new name Bulgar, Burger is established. Bulgar, wolves, bulk, head, was the name of the flag of the Idels, which consisted of a wolf's head. Since the word Bulgar in the Trek Bulgarian language meant both black and wolf, the Bulgarians were called both wolf-headed and black-headed one. Bulgarians spoke both Trek Bulgarian, Bulgarian Turkic, and Indo-Aryan dialects, but gradually over the millennia the Turkic language became the main language. Separate groups of Bulgarians due to various disorders and difficulties in the state of Idel left their ancestral homeland and migrated all the way to the other side of the world. Significant resettlements of Bulgarian families from the Volga-Urals took place 10 to 15,000 years ago. A part of the Bulgarians migrated all the way to America, and there today it is seen that they built pyramids and cave temples and used Bulgarian Turkic words. Another part of the Bulgarians settled in Central Asia, where they became known as Huns, Sjunu, and Syanbians, and also built earthen pyramids and cave temples in the mountains too. A third group of Bulgarians migrated to Katana III, and from here 2 groups later separated in northern India and the Middle East. In the Near East the Bulgars established a famous state, which they named in honor of the fertility Alpha Sama, Suma. It extended from the Balkans and Asia Minor to western Iran and from Transcaucasia to northern Egypt and the Persian Gulf. The first capital of early Sama Shuma was the city of Atalan in southern Iraq. The Bulgarians called today's Iraq Suva, intermediate, and this Bulgarian tradition was preserved after millennia as the Greek name Mesopotamia. After a catastrophic flood in 3182 BC, named the Universal Flood, the capital of Atalan was destroyed, and the entire submerged part of Sama came to be called Atlantis. Sumer broke up into several independent kingdoms. In nearly all these kingdoms, Mammal Egypt, Kresh Crete, post-flood Sumer, the custom of building pyramids and tombs was preserved, but the Bulgars themselves were melted down by the surrounding tribes, Aegean, Indo-Aryan, Afrasian, ancient Egyptians, Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, Arabs, ancient Jews, etc. Only in Asia Minor and Transcaucasia are Bulgarian principalities preserved. Then East and Central Asia Minor was conquered by the Cimmerians Hittites who came from the northern Black Sea and through the Caucasus, betray to a number of Germanic tribes, Teutons, Goths, Cimbri. The name Cimmerians derives from the ancient Bulgarian nickname of the Hittites Kumar, yellow or bright head, Teuton from another Bulgarian nickname of the Hittites Stout Iron, 4 tribes. Western Asia Minor was invaded by the Hellenic conquerors. Around 1200 BC the ancient Hellenes attacked the main Bulgarian western Turkic city of Atriarch, Troy. The Bulgarians called the area of Atriarchiana Idel, New Idel, in memory of the Nagush homeland. The Greeks subsequently named the whole of Asia Minor with this name in the form Anatole. After a decade-long siege, the Hellenes captured and destroyed Troy. But even after that the Bulgarians in Asia Minor assimilated the local Cimmerians, the Hittites, and a part of the Bulgarians Athrians moved to the Apennines and created here a new kingdom of Idel. From this name originated Italy, and from the Bulgarian word for the indigenous inhabitants of the Apennines Altenbash came the name Latini. The name Atrians in Italy took the form Etruscans. In Italy and Greece the custom has been preserved of calling the Bulgarians and Bulgarians Til, Thuli I, from Idel, or the Bulgarian royal dynasty Dulo, among the Slavs Tula, Duliba, among the Indians Delhi, from Idel. Later Arabs and Jews called the numerous ruins of ancient Bulgarian settlements by telephone too. As for the Volga-Ural kingdom of Idel, founded by the son of the Alpa Ordan, Jamidchig, after the death of this king the evil spirits brought into it the spirit of internecine strife. According to the myths, Jam lived on the river Ermin, which is why they called him Ermin. He had 5 sons, Bertas, Bulgar, Alan, Sermish Sarmath and Besser, whom he bequeathed to be friendly and to uphold the unity of the Bulgarian state. But after the death of the father, the sons quarreled over the beauty Shulman, whom the evil spirits brought to Idel on the Kama River to sow discord, fearing the might of the Bulgarian state. These brothers laid the foundation for 5 feuding and alternating Bulgarian royal dynasties. It is no coincidence that in the many millennia of reigns and internecine struggles of these 5 dynasties, the Bulgarians aptly called their era Bishkalpak, the 5 crowns, meaning crowns, dynasties. With the accession of Bertas, of the Sarmatian dynasty, the power struggle ceased. Under him, Idel mastered the territory from the Danube to Lake Balkhash, Lake Bulgar. He tried to annex to Idel the whole of Sama, the Near East, from the Balkans to the Persian Gulf. The war began on the occasion of the attack of the South Saxon tribes of the Masargeti against the North Saxon tribes in the areas of present-day Kazakhstan, who were subject to Idel. According to the accounts of Kulgali, the northern Saka adopted the myth of Gaza from the Bulgarians and turned it into the following legend. Once the Masargeti defeated all the northern Sakas, and only the son of the Saka chief was saved by his mother, who hid the infant in a hollow in a tree. This boy grew up and restored the lineage of the northern Sakas. On this occasion the Bulgars called the northern Sakas Kipchaks, hollow trees. These Kipchaks were defeated by the Masargeti and they asked the Idel king Bertas, Partajua, to give them a more peaceful land to live in. Bertas asked that part of the Cimmerians, who still inhabited the northern Black Sea coast and were called Alman, seaside, by the Bulgars, to thicken up and cede a part of their steppes to the Kipchaks. But the Cimmerians refused. Bertas then moved his capital to the site of the capital of his ancestor Kielbek, Chela, who, immediately after the flood, tried to help the Sumerian Bulgarians to keep Sama under his rule, and ordered his son Major Rijik to expel the Cimmerians by force. To excite his son, Bertas promised him that if he won he would name his capital Chalamaji. Magi, Mada, Idchig, Azak, completely defeated the Cimmerians, many of whom fled across the Caucasus to the Cimmerians of Asia Minor, the Hittites. Magi located the Kipchaks in the northern Black Sea coast and the Greeks living alongside them adopted their Bulgarian name Kipchaks in the form Scythians. And the old Kazakh steppes of the Kipchaks were occupied by Turkic-speaking nomads, to whom the nickname of the northern Kipchaks was transferred, Kipchaks. But this did not put an end to the activity of the Magi. Inspired by the victory, Magi with a Bulgarian Kipchak army headed for Sama, Middle East, to join it with Idil. The Turco-Bulgarians of Asia Minor and the Assyrian king, father-in-law of Bertas, joined the Idel Bulgarians, who defeated Western Persia, the dominions of the Afrasians in Urartu, Syria, and Palestine. The panic induced in the Semites by the mighty Bulgarian assault was forever sealed in the Bible by the ancient Hebrew preacher Jeremiah, and behold, a people comes from the north country, holding a bow and a short spear, he is cruel, and will not pity you. Their voices roar like the sea, they leap on horses built like one man, just to hear the tidings of them makes our hands faint, the enemy's sword strikes terror into all countries. In 625 BC, after 28 years of Bulgarian domination over the Middle East, Idel's power in Sama fell. The West Persian king, subordinate to Idel, treacherously killed the Kipchak at a feast he had arranged. The Bulgarian garrison in Sama consisted mainly of Kipchaks, and Magi had to lead the distraught Kipchak troops out of the image but into Idel. In the 6th century BC, a part of the Asia Minor and Transcaucasian Bulgarians, Hermikioni and Saboni, was exiled by the Persian king Darius to Central Asia, where after 1,200 years the Turkic Khaganate was formed, and from here the Bulgarian name Turk spread to all Turkic-speaking peoples. Later the Bulgarians tried more than once to repeat the success of Madzi, especially insistently in the centuries PXH century AD. The state of Idel finally adopted the dominant ethnonym in its nation, Bulgar, Bulgaria, Bulgaria, and the word Idel remained as the name of the Volga-Kama river system and entered into the Turkic Bulgarian names of its 7 largest rivers: Kara Idel, Volga, Kama Idel or Shulman Idel, Kama, Akh Idel or Aj-Idel, Balaya, Nukrat Idel, or Botka Idel, Vyatka, etc. At the beginning of the 10th century AD the Rus territory separated from the Bulgars, having been in Idel since the 7th century BC for 1,600 years of residence in the Idel Bulgarian state. The Rus Slavs and Finno-Ugric people adopted about 2,000 words and a bunch of Bulgarian customs, traditions and myths. The displaced Bulgarian groups of families and tribes from the territory of Idel have spread all over the world the Bulgarian myths and legends, customs, traditions, knowledge and way of life. Among the myths that the Bulgarians have given to the world are the myth of Mardu Khan Karga, who destroyed the wall of the savages and gave back to the people the sun, warmth and life. In the form of the legend of the crow that brought warmth to the earth one, this myth has persisted even among the American Indians. One of the names of the Alpha Karga the Asia Minor Bulgarians gave to their city Atriarch, Troya, Etruscan, and the other Mardu Khan, in the form Mordechai became a name among the Jews. The myth of how Mardu Khan Chakshak's wife once saved the Alpa Sama by making living water for him also became widely known. For his salvation, Sama gave Chakshak a spray with his monogram, a swastika, to a talisman and symbol of potency and immortality. From that moment, the swastika also became a symbol of family happiness and was therefore necessarily embroidered on Bulgarian wedding cloaks. In honor of Chakshak, the wedding dish of the Bulgarians was called Chakshak III, and the Bulgarian myth of the kingdom of Torrent, which was ruled by the Alpbeka, gave rise to the myths of the female kingdom of the Amazons throughout the world. The Bulgarian myth of the Alpha Bori has become very popular around the world. The wolf was a totem animal for the Bulgarians and one of the most powerful and beloved folk spirits. The image of the wolf's head adorned the flag of the Bulgarians, and the Bulgarian men tried to wear a wolfskin hat, buruk, from beret, wolf, as a head protection. Interestingly, the Bulgarians originally called the dog Ermak, or Oimak, domestic wolf, and the lion Alugmak, big wolf. Much later the dog was called Et and the lion Arslan IV. The Alp-Bori Bas was the Deber Alp. The Bulgarian myth of Gozan says that once the Yaburs V completely wiped out the Idel clan of the Elbs, the rich, who were the chief defenders of the ambassadors of the Idel clan. Only one Elba youth, the son of the Idel chieftain, survived. His name was Isa Moonlight, or simply I Moonlight, because he was born in a moon nosh. The victorious cannibals decided to eat the boy and threw him into a cauldron, Kazan. But Alp-Bori did not allow the infant to perish. He gave strength to the child's badly wounded mother, and with her last strength she managed to roll the cauldron with her son into the river. The river, by the will of Suanasa, carried the cauldron into a large and impassable swamp. Here Suanasa, having turned into a swan, in other versions an Amatu into a goose, or a stork 6, called to her husband, the Alpha Bori, for help. The wolf himself was unable to reach the cauldron with the child, so he chased a deer into the swamp. It is said that the deer's name was Alpha Sama, and ordered it to fetch the infant. The deer brought the boy and a she-wolf at the will of the Bori nourished Issa, whom in this connection they began to call Garzan and Magulai, son of Marga Wolf, and Burjan, Wolf Soul, and Chingiz, Tingiz, Magus, Wolf-like, and Burulai, only son. Garzan became a mighty Bogatar and restored the Idel clan to the Albiers, who began to call them also Burjans, Berendai, and Burulai, and Norburi, Nuri, New Wolves. Thanks to Alpburi, the Bulgars were the first on earth to master the secret of toasting clay and smelting metals, as evidenced by the myth of the rich man Orden. Once the evil savage Tama Tarkan, lord of the underworld, kidnapped and carried deep underground the wife of Alpburi, Suanasa. Buri headed down and lost his way in the underground labyrinth. Then Orden and his companions went to the rescue of the Alp and killed the evil savage Tama Tarkan in the deep cave. The rich man struck with his mace the weakest point of the iron yorig, his clay knees. But the huge torso of this genie blocked the exit from the underworld. Luckily, Alpburi gathered his companions and with his fiery gaze set fire to and melted the body of the yorig. This wolf taught the Bulgarians how to toast clay and melt metals, and the Bulgarians gave Buri another name, Silic, Silye, Jelici, metallurgist, from the Bulgarian selatorjlid, melting metal. From it the word iron is derived one. Interestingly, the famous Bulgarian Prince Jakin, Tarkin, Turk, grandson of King Armaesh Jafar, was also called a metallurgist. Later, the family of Jakin, which came to be called Seljuk, i.e., the family of the metallurgist, allied with the family of the Oghuz Khan, settled in Bulgaria and led the Bulgarian Oghuz. One of the Seljuks with a detachment of Bulgarian Oghuz was after a time sent by the Bulgarian ruler Talip Muban on a campaign against the Samanid Oghuz, and after the first successes proclaimed himself the chief of the Central Asian Oghuz, and his descendants in the 11th century established the independent Seljuk state. But for all his goodness, Alpburi was also a very scary savage. With his fiery gaze he could burn, turn to stone, frighten and kill thieves and adulterers. At one time, the evil savages stole one of Alpburi's eyes, which is why this savage appears one-eyed in some myths. The Bulgarian tribes, in their dispersions, have spread the myths of Buri and Gozan in Altai, in China, in Mongolia, 2 in India, 3 in Egypt, 4 in Italy, 5 and elsewhere. The ancient Indian religious hymns Vedas mention the name Kubar Yandiri in the form Indra 6. The name Alpbikaban or Obiamai, Ramai, became with the later Eurasians and Jews the name Abraham. In Eastern Asia Minor, Lake Van comes from Ban, as does the area of Banant, Vanand. By the way, the word ant, and the other forms, Kan, Kont, Shan, in Bulgarian means mountain, and since the mountains were sacred, they were sworn upon. Thus the word ant in Bulgarians also meant oath. Everywhere in the world where Bulgarian tribes settled, the Bulgarian word ant has taken root. In America the Andes Mountains, in Spain from the Bulgarian word for Spain Angelus, mountain country has come the name of the Andalusian district, in the Urals from the Bulgarian Ant, or Hand Middle Urals, has come the name of the people Hapti 7 and so on. The Bulgarian myth of how the Alpbika Suanasa once saved the tribe of the Albiers was later adopted by the Italians and the Kazakh Ugri, the Bashkort Sate, etc. In this myth the following is said: after the rise of the Elba tribe of Garzan, the enemy again tried to attack them suddenly. But Suanasa ordered a flock of geese, is another variant storks, to quack behind the enemy's backs, and the attackers took this quacking as a warrior's cry and turned to panic flight. It may now be clear why geese also saved Rome, and the Bulgarians named the largest lake in Europe Balaton, from Blaton. From that point on, thanks to the Albiers, then all Bulgarians began to use the name of their savior Uranus as a battle cry. Hurrah! The Bulgarian myth of the island of Kresh, Borkeski, Crete, was borrowed in Europe. On this island, in the event of the death of an Alp, other Alps gathered and in the mountains arranged around a mourning flag commemorative single struggles. The ancient Greeks adopted not only the competitions around the flag, like the Olympic Games, but also the name of the island of Kresh, pronounced Crete. A part of the Balkan Bulgarians entered as a constituent among the ancient Greek tribes and preserved their Bulgarian names: Aspar, Roy in the nationality Spartans, Magidan, Wolf-Pit in the name Macedonia, etc. The Bulgarian word Aspar is the basis of the name of the Thracian Spartacus, chief of the Roman slaves, and of the Bulgarian Khan Osparu. No less famous in the world is the symbolism associated with the myth of Orden and Ijik. According to the myth, the first white shaman, Boyan, who led the prayers of the people to the heaven Tangra, was the Alp Orden. Kulgali narrates how the ritual of worshipping Tangra originated. Earlier people did not know the truth of their origin, but Auden tells them about how the human race came into existence on Earth thanks to the Creator. From that moment people began to thank Tangra. For this they climbed a high mountain in the taiga every year in June. Its slopes were covered with trees and grew a boikazin, ken, a sacred birch tree, on top of which an altar of stones, ufa or tagiel one was built. The procession of the people to the top was led by Auden with a spear staff in his hands. Purification pyres were lit around the boikazana and a white horse, Ajik, Azak and lambs were sacrificed to Tangra. During the prayer itself, the people, led by the boyana, circumambulated the sacred birches 3 times. The son of Auden, Jam led the sacrificial horse covered with a beautiful blanket to the prayer, for which he received the name Ajik. After that, Ajik continued to lead the prayer alone. When the people decided to elect Jam Ajik on this mountain as their Khan, Kagan, they lifted him up with the Ajik's covering and carried him 3 times in a circle around the sacred birches, after which they presented him with the sign of kingship, the bunchuk, a braided braid of hair from the tail of the Ajik tied to a spear staff. It was believed that Tangra himself have commanded that this bunchuk be bestowed upon him, and Kursa brought it from heaven to earth. Some have suggested that Askonda's sign means bunchuk and that the name Askonda's Tamga was later derived a sign of Tangra or, more precisely, the sign of submission to Tangra, the hexagonal star. People have deciphered it thus: the upper triangle, that is the will of the Creator, and the lower triangle is the Kagan submissive to the will of the Creator with his people. The 6-fold circumambulation around the sacred birches depicts exactly this sign. The Uchpokmaki, triangles, which were prepared by the Bulgarians, were at the beginning of the sacrificial meal in the ritual of the supplication to Tangra. All these symbols, together with the tribes and clans of the displaced Bulgarians, spread all over the world, from India and Palestine to Italy and Germany. The swastika became the sacred sign of the Indians, the hexagonal star became the coat of arms of Israel, and the bunchuka became the sign of power of the Italian duce, under the name fasciu, ball, link, of the Polish and Ukrainian hetmans, the atamans of the Russian Cossacks, the Turkish chieftains. From fascio the word fascism is derived. In addition to fascio, the National Socialists in Hitler's Germany chose the swastika as their coat of arms. But whoever uses Bulgarian symbols and signs, they will always belong to the Bulgarian people. After the conversion to Islam in Volga Bulgaria, the sign of submission to Tangra became for the Bulgarians one of the symbols of Islam and was depicted on fences, walls, minarets of mosques, on tombstones, on coins and royal decorations and jewelry. The crescent moon, the other ancient Bulgarian symbol, has adorned the tops of the wooden poles of Bulgarian flags since time immemorial and, being one of the elements in the signs of the royal family of Dulo, the so-called Tamga of Askonda, has become the most famous symbol of Islam. The prayers to the heaven Tangra were called Mentyre. In the troubled times of Bishkalpak, the Bulgarians began to sacrifice to Mentyre, at first 7 youths, later 7 maidens of 7 clans. The people assumed that by sacrificing people to Tangra the bloody internecine strife would come to an end. After 14 years, at Burtas, the strife ceased and the Bulgars stopped sacrificing people. Kulgali also notes that some of the Bulgarians who left Idel to the east held Mentyre in an area in western Hin, which they also called Idel. But there the name Idel, he writes, assumed the meaning of sevenfold, the place where 6 rivers wash the slopes of 6 mountains, i.e. Altai, from Alta, 6. Altai was chosen for prayers to Tangra because the 6 mountains were reminiscent of the hexagonal sign of obedience to God. And as for the region of Hin, it is said that there arose the state of the Eastern Bulgars, or Huns, Oni, formed by the descendants of Jamidchik, the Konidchik Kagan, son of Boyaneman. In Europe, the place of the Bulgars' prayers to Tangra was the island of Crete, and also the Alps. These mountains and the main peak Mont Blanc received the Bulgarian names. Alpi in Bulgarian means Visoki, from Alp, one of its meanings is high, and Mont Blanc rich, in meadows, Bolan. Kulgali stresses that when Attila was in Altinbash, Italy, he saw the Alps there, and in the locality of Rich of Meadows, he held a prayer to Tangra. The ancient Greeks preserved the memory of the Bulgarian prayers to Tangra. Their poetides turned the name Mentyre into the monster Minotaur, to whom 7 youths and 7 maidens were sacrificed on the island of Crete. The name of the Bulgarian spirit of abundance, Sama is heard in many geographical names throughout the world. Suffice it to say that there are towns and rivers named Sama in the Volga region, Ukraine, Palestine, Central Asia, Iraq, etc., and that the Middle Eastern Bulgarians named their country Sama, Suma, in honor of the Alpha Sama 5,000 years ago. After the disintegration of ancient Suma into parts, the Asia Minor Bulgarians, cattle breeders, called themselves and their Beylik, principality, by another, more favorite name Bull, after the spirit of abundance Turk, hence Turks. According to Bulgarian myth, Sama was born on the island of Kresh, Crete, which at the beginning of the world hung in the sky, and then descended to the earth. The ancient Greeks adopted one of Sama's names, Sabosh, in the form Zeus, and made him their chief deity. Then, when the ancient Greeks conquered Crete, the Bulgarians began to call them Kreshani, Cretans one. The Bulgarian myths about Auda influenced the folklore of many peoples around the world. It is interesting what is said about the myth of Auden and Beagle according to Kulgali. Once, while hunting, Auden came out in front of a river and saw Boigle in it. The Alp fell head over heels in love with the Alp bee, but she looked at him indifferently and dived deep under the water. In order to win the heart of Boigle, Auden performed several feats, but even this did not move the Alp beaker. Auden then went to the spirit of songs, Treason, to learn from him how to sing charmingly. For his wonderful singing, Treason was called Sandugak, nightingale, and he could destroy everything around with his unusually loud voice. When once the inhabitants of a small town doubted the power of this Alp's voice, he brought down the citadel wall with his angry roar. From that moment this town was called by the name of the Alp Jerkagai. After a time this name was changed, and it has come down to the present day in the form Jericho. Kugali visited this Palestinian city during the Hajj. In the Russian epic songs, Treason went by the name of Solovey the robber, whose singing also destroyed everything around. The song Alp passed on some of the secrets of his mastery to Auden, but Boyon's singing did not touch the heart of Boigle either. In utter despair at this, Auden threw himself into the river, but Boigle rescued him and asked him why he had done so. Then Auden told her of the love he felt for her, and learned from her that she did not feel that love was upset. The Alpha of Chivalry went to Torrent to find out what the matter was, but she refused to meet him in the mountains of Uraltau, as she only allowed herself to be seen by senior divas, spirits of the first and second generation, and Auden was a young diva of the third generation. Then Auden, in order to predispose his ever-young grandmother, raised for her a magnificent earthen pyramid, a boulder or mound, with a cave, keep, chamber, inside, and began to wait for the Alp beaker directly in the cave, torch in hand. And he waited. Torrent called from the darkness and asked what he needed. Auden asked why Beagle couldn't love him. Torrent replied that the female spirits of the third generation would love the Alp on whom the lot cast by her stopped. And if the Alp conquers the Alp bee by his own capricious decision, they will have no children. Auden did not accept all this and began to beg Abiyamai to evoke in Boigle feelings of love for him and the ability to give birth from him. Torrent liked Auden's gift, the pyramid, and therefore came out of the darkness in the form of a snake and gave him a part of her snake skin, the touch of which would cause love to arise. At this Torrent warned that the children of Auden and Boigle would be mortal men. Delighted, Auden emerged from the cave, for his sojourn in which he was called Guruglu son of grave, for the Bulgarians buried their dead in a keep, and went at once to Boigle. He leaned a piece of the magic skin on her and Boigle fell in love with Auden. They were married and had a son, Jamijik, Hishtk. In truth, Suanasa also unexpectedly fell in love with Auden and persuaded Laish, one of the Alpha's brothers, to blind her own daughter, who was her rival. Laish, who had never seen Boigle, shot his bow and blinded his brother's wife. No less interesting is the myth of Auden and Torrent, told to us again by Kulgali. Auden loved his son so much that he did not want to outlive him, and once again turned to Torrent with a request to turn himself mortal. In turn, Abiyamai loved her grandson and decided to force him to change his mind. And so, in order to make Auden feel the hard life of the people, she offered him at first to live temporarily as a human slave, and after he agreed she turned him into a slave. Auden, however, endured this ordeal. He served his master excellently in his home, gathered me a good harvest, and was therefore released from slavery early and even became chief of the tribe. Torrent for her primary purpose then asked Auden to make her a honey and clay jar. And again, Auden fulfilled the order of the Alp beaker and did not change his mind about becoming a man. Torrent then threw the two brought vessels on the floor. The earthenware vessel shattered, but the honey pot remained unharmed. Pointing to the Mabiama, he said, "The immortal Alps are similar to the honey pot, and the human life you choose is fragile like the clay pot, it is breakable. So is it worth sacrificing immortality for the sake of a short human life?" Even now, Auden did not change his mind, and only then did the Alpic make him mortal. As a parting gift, she gave him a snake-shaped earring wrapped around a tree, with a stone in the middle to protect him from human villainy. This was the last 13th feat of Auden, it is noted in the myth, according to Kulgali, but the people did not include it in the list of the exploits of the Alpha, not appreciating his greatness. Other peoples, adopting this myth, turned one of the names of Auden, Guraglui, into Kur-Ogulwi, the Azerbaijanis, Goraglui, the Turkmen, Guraglui, the Tajiks, Kairoglu, the Turks, Heracles, the Greeks, Hercules, the Latians, Romans, etc. 2. The reason for paying more attention to Bulgarian myths here is to explain human progress, how man gradually becomes stronger, the level of his aesthetic conceptions and spiritual needs rises. The princes, priests, and chiefs with the warriors are separated from the mass of ordinary commons. The chiefs then become kings, and the warriors beys, tribal communal princes. And to justify their domination over the rest of the people, and to reinforce the impact of their own views and understandings over the people, the princes declare themselves descendants, man-children of the spirits, Bogatas. They create heroic, Bogata songs in which the human descendants of the Alpha, the Bogatas, sustain victories over evil spirits for the sake of the salvation of the people and win for themselves as well as for their descendants the right to be the lords of their tribe. They also create even more large-scale and high-impact celebrations in honor of Tangra, the god who gave life to the spirits, the Alps and their descendants, the Bogatas. These celebrations grew into tribal festivals. The festivals were created based on a talented unification of several rites into one powerful hymn to Tangra, the Alpas and the rich men who founded the dominant dynasties and kings. The heroic songs performed at the festivals were, over time, merged into tribal epics, dastans, tales. The struggle between rulers for dominance necessitated the need to intensify the exploitation of the people and centralize power. But the over-centralization of government was hampered by the Bajayas, who drew on old traditions. Over the centuries, therefore, kings have had to employ a new elite, the feudal lords, to introduce new religions with their help and to declare the old beliefs superstitious, thereby depriving the Bears of princely rights. The kings, whether in Volga Bulgaria or Danubian Bulgaria, at their discretion, asserted the right to continue their rule with the blessing of the ministers of a new faith, converted to Islam or Christianity, and declared folk mythology, rites, and festivals to be superstitions. By erasing the differences between tribes, world religion helps to form united nationalities and nations. But the common people have not parted with their customs and traditions, legends, festivals and rites. The individual spirit of the people is an expression of voluntary existence and an attempt to preserve the human dignity of the individual, giving him a healing breath of joy and festive experiences in his difficult daily life and constant oppression. The kings in Volga Bulgaria, though after much struggle, were forced to acquiesce to the will of the people and were forced to adapt certain legends and festivals to the new faith. They isolated and cleansed some of the dastans from certain divas, and their heroes, the rich men, were praised according to the canon of the straight faith. Prayers and cheers in honor of the rulers appear, and joint rites with men and women contrary to Islam are excluded from the festivals. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. Also, follow me on Spotify, subscribe to my Patreon, support me on Buy Me a Coffee, and join me on Ko-fi. Let's honor our history, learn from its lessons, and inspire a brighter future together.